welcome back. Well, Darcy, before we left, we were talking about mental obsession, and I had mentioned at that point in time the idea of doing blackout shopping, and had said we would address that after the break. Now, you tell us a little bit about what blackout shopping is, and then you've brought a clip, I guess, from a series done on Channel 11 that we'll be able to see to help make this point a little better, okay? So tell us a little bit about what it is.
Okay, well, blackout shopping is when you have, for example, gone to the ATM and you take out $100 and all of a sudden $80 is gone. Who knows where? It's just disappeared, and you could have spent it in the last 24 hours, but try to recollect it, and the information is just not there. So we call it blackout shopping.
Okay.
It's just the not knowing. It's complete and utter vagueness.
Okay, so you have no idea where the money is going. And it probably went to small items, I would guess, kind of like a latte here, a little lunch there, a book there, I mean, which is another reason it's probably hard to keep up with.
Right.
Because it's not like a big ticket item.
Sure, and the little things add up. And not that the little things are necessarily negative shopping, it's just important to know that. A lot of people think that they're doing it all wrong. When we're going to talk about record keeping a little bit later, they'll find out that a lot of what they're doing is appropriate spending. Just maybe need to adjust it a little bit, fine-tune it a little bit, and give themselves permission to put lattes on their spending plan, for example.
Okay.
Blackout shopping can be very serious. People really, literally, I've seen people in the mall and their eyes look kind of glossed over, and they're kind of bumping into things, and they have a lot of fear when they pull out their credit card to give to the clerk that they're going to say, "You're over your limit," and be ashamed and embarrassed. So there's a lot of emotion that goes along with it. On the clip, you'll see women that have been, well, some people that have been hooked up to a machine, literally, and they're going out shopping, and you'll see the action in the physical body.
Okay, so how
what goes on and
how our body changes. Okay.
And how it's literally affected. It's not your imagination if you've ever experienced it. You know?
Okay. There is a physiological response. Let's take a look at that clip and see what you're talking about.
Forward high shopping.
I got one. It's like blood starts coursing through my veins, and I sweat. I can break out in a sweat. Help me.
You get a little dizzy.
The act of buying doesn't just affect your bank balance, it affects your brain. No, really.
As you're about to buy something, your adrenaline starts to rush. It's almost like getting a shot of morphine. Your endorphin goes out in your brain, and your neurochemicals change, and you get a high, almost like a drug high.
What science understands as a physiological phenomenon, shoppers understand as an emotional experience.
There's that feeling of, oh, look at that pretty car, that's mine, you know?
This is a shopping focus group conducted by researchers Bob Deutsch and Marshall Blonsky. They break down purchase high into 5 phases.
The first phase I call possibility. There's a slight fraying of the self, okay, of the self-image.
You wanna add, you need something new in your life.
Next stage is rehearsal. You start talking to yourself about it. You start looking in the environment for it.
I kept thinking about this shirt, and I've got to have it.
Despite what you might think, the highest shopping high, the biggest rush, does not come when you buy something. It happens right before that. Shopologists call it the active arousal phase.
You're actually in the environment that you're going to make the purchase. You put the thing on, you see how it feels, you look in the mirror, you adore yourself.
Like, you got to give it to the sales girl, and you're like, this is mine. This has my name on it.
Next, you make the purchase itself. That's just a mere act. It's a transaction. It's a business transaction.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. After you make the purchase, you have reality check.
But I've done something else with this money. But it's always no, especially when it's that one thing you really love.
Thus, the cycle is complete until we develop the need to shop again.
We are the most advanced consumer society in the world. That's only another way of saying addiction to the high of shopping.
What physically is the high? We asked neurologist Alan Hirsch to show us, using shopper Tamara Cooper Dempsey as a guinea pig.
We know that different areas of your brain control different functions. So
Dr. Hirsch wired up Tamara to an ambulatory EEG-EKG for a day of shopping with her best friend Debbie.
Here's what we're going to have you do. Just write down what you want to buy and the time.
Okay, let's go shopping.
As she shops, with 18 electrodes attached to her head and heart, Dr. Hirsch gets a baseline browsing level.
And you can see the low amplitude of the way it forms.
Then Tamara spots an Anne Klein outfit.
Okay, they have these in green, too.
And what you're seeing is there's a marked increase in amplitude of brainwave activity.
She's experiencing purchase high.
This is purchase high.
After the purchase, Tamara's brain waves and heart rate return to baseline until she lays eyes on Armani.
I'm pushing the button because I love it.
But they don't have Tamara's size. She'll have to order it, which tempers her purchase high.
A clearly increase in amplitude, but not nearly the sort of level of excitement where she actually had the object present.
The most impressive reading occurs at Bendel's, where Tamara buys a Polartec jacket at a discount.
Compare that to her baseline and how...
Oh my God. It's like an earthquake, basically.
Well, that's what it looks like, that's right.
The thrill of the hunt isn't new. It's what we gather that's changed.
We have created a kind of evolutionary monster because we can create our own prey and then try to buy it.
Are they cute? Look at the tiger stripe ones.
If the shopping cycle sounds like something else that's pretty fun, it is.
When you actually, it's a seizure, just like sex is, forgive me, please. And then when you go home and you look at yourself in the mirror, you are deflated.
Actually, shopping is actually a good alternative to sex.
Nothing like the feeling of a shopping bag in your hand.
Welcome back. Well, that was interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I'll have a whole different way of looking at myself next time I'm at the mall.
That's what people say. You get a lot of different reactions on that.
So you show this actually when you do trainings and speakings?
I do.
Okay.
I do, because I think that it's really important for people to put their finger on it and to know that there is definitely a physical component to some of the spending and the shopping.
So, I mean, it really, literally is mind-altering.
Very much.
Okay.
And mood-altering.
And mood-altering. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's take a look. We have another graphic on beliefs that people have that probably accompany those feeling changes. Let's take a quick look and see if any of them look familiar to you.
Okay.
Okay. Money doesn't grow on trees. Money talks. What do you think I'm made of? Money? You're going to bleed me dry. And money is the root of all evil. Now, are those things that you hear when you do workshops that people sort of carry with them? We talked about this briefly before, about sort of things we bring with us from our childhood and from our culture about money.
Over and over. We hear all of these over and over. It was very common for parents to say that to their children in the grocery store, and the child wants, one of everything. So they don't say the message once or twice. I mean, it's something that's repeated over and over and really gets ingrained. And people go into their early adult years thinking these things, but it's not conscious.
Okay.
It's kind of, in the back of their mind, so they act it out.
So a lot of what you do as a financial recovery person is to bring things to the surface for people so they get more clear about why they do what they do with money and how they feel about it.
Right. There is part of our workbook is a money autobiography written by Karen McCall, and they literally talk about questions that go way back to the early childhood and then early years and then adult years and then up to the present time, and it's just simple questions trying to jog the memory and try to come up with some beliefs and attitudes that they might have received.
Okay. Well, it looks like I think we've got a pretty good sense of why we do what we do or what could be contributing. Let's take a look at some bottom line healthy behaviors also described in the financial recovery book. Let's take a look. Knowing what your income is, well, that makes intuitive sense, though there's those of us who don't have any idea. Knowing where your money goes. Knowing your checkbook balance. Knowing if your checkbook balance agrees with your bank statement, which would require you to open it. Knowing how much you owe. And what it's costing you in interest. Okay, we've got several vocabulary challenges there. Let's start with this business of knowing what your income is and where it goes. I mean, how often do people really not know what their income is?
More than you think. A lot of people are very, very vague. They don't know the difference maybe between gross and net, or maybe they're getting bonuses and they haven't really calculated that in, or maybe they have their own business and their income is sporadic or up and down.
Okay.
So it's much more difficult, of course, to keep track of that, and very important to keep track of that, so you know on a yearly you have an idea of what you're going to be earning the next month so that you can plan properly.
Okay. So in terms of knowing your checkbook balance, it sounds like our checkbook is a tool for doing that. And, you know, I certainly know there's people that are very intimidated by the register. And part of keeping the register is keeping us in reality.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of vagueness that can happen in a checkbook. It's a very slippery place for a lot of people. Some clients that I see from time to time are bouncing checks, and so, you know, we talk about that, and it's costing them quite a bit of money to pay those fees, and one of the first things to do is simply stop writing checks. And they had never maybe heard that before, or maybe they weren't ready to hear that you can live without a checkbook temporarily, because you need to kind of get a grip on what your expenses are so that you can stop paying bounce check fees. The other thing to do is to not have a running balance, but to write in the amount of the check, and you just never subtract it. So one of my clients is really funny. She calls it an intuitive balance. I have a feeling it's around $500, you know, so she's just kind of going on a feeling that she has, you know, so we talk about that, and we try to get a little bit of business aspect in it. So one of the things I help people do is to try to, you know, become willing, first of all, to come out of the vagueness, because we're talking about clarity here, knowing where the money is going and knowing how much money you really have. So it's really not playing games with yourself and being willing to step up to the batter's box and take responsibility for how much money is in the checkbook.
Okay, and so in terms of comparing that with your statement, I mean, I teased about having to open it, but I imagine there are certainly people who keep their statements and never look at them. We have about a minute. In terms of this word interest, I know that is a tremendous place of vagueness, which is you may know what the balance is, but have no idea what you're paying in penalties. And do people know what 21% interest means? Or
usually not.
Okay.
Usually not, and that's one of the things that we'll focus on, and it's not the main focus, because a lot of times it's not about the interest, it's about the behavior.
Okay.
But it's the business aspect really is going to get them out of debt when they find out how much they're paying to stay in debt.
Well, I want to thank you for making time for coming. I want to thank you for tuning in. Join us next week as we learn about group therapy and why it works. I'm Mary Crocker Cook. Good night.